Ever since OpenAI released their Agents SDK, I've been building all kinds of cool stuff. It's been amazing, but it kind of feels like they left a big chunk of the feature set off. They don't have a playground for their agents and workflows. So I did what I had to do. I built my own AI playground for OpenAI's agents and workflows, and I think it turned out pretty cool. All right, let's take a quick look at how this would work. This is like a flow that I've built with one agent triaging it to two other agents. And basically the first agent is an English speaking agent and the other two are Spanish and French speaking agents. Let's take a look at how this would work. And as this is a full-fledged playground-like experience where you can build your agent, you can add the tools. And in this tab, we'll take a look at the agent in action. As you can see, it's interacting with agent 1 at this point. And now I would ask it for a dialogue. It keeps the conversation history so it can walk through what was spoken to. And now I'm asking it to switch between different agents. Let's take a look at how these manifested in the OpenAI side. As you can see, these manifest in OpenAI on their traces. And you could see that these had handshakes, these had handoffs to different agents. Agent 1 had handoffs to agent 3, etc., and so on and so forth. For the tech stack for this tool, I decided to use Next.js as the front end and use Python with FastAPI on the backend. Now, the goal was for the backend, I did not want to, at this stage, set up a database and user authentication, etc. So most of the agent stuff is saved in memory and in session. So I give users an option to clear their session. And the best part is users get to bring their own OpenAI keys. So you don't have to manage that for the users. I am hosting this on Vercel, which is an amazing tool. All right, let's get round to using the tool. The biggest problem and the challenge that I wanted to tackle was building the multi-agent workflows. In OpenAI, you'd have to do everything in code. There was no tool like a playground or something like N8N that you can kind of play around and orchestrate it with a mind map kind of a way and then test it, right? And then the best thing of all, you can just take the code and plug it into your backend. So let's get started. Let's build our first agent. The first thing you do in the tool, there's a wonderful user guide that I've set up here that walks through every single step of this process. So the first thing you do when you get into the session, when you get into building an agent in the agent builder, is go to the setting and clear all stored data. This is stored data from locally. If you've been using the tool before, it kind of has some agents in there and stuff in the sessions. So you can clear all of that, start from fresh. I typically just use incognito mode because it keeps all of my session data fresh. Let's start with putting in our OpenAI key and get cracking and building the agent. So I grab my OpenAI key, I put it there. I'd have to validate it. And once the key is valid and validated, you're good. Save settings, and you can get cracking on building your first agent. I will in this example do the same thing that we did for the demo. We'll build an agent that can speak English and that can act as our assistant that triages out to Spanish and French agents for their respective languages. To get our first agent started, you'd want to give all the important aspects of what you need to declare in an agent. In this case, it's an agent name, instructions for the agent, what model you're using. I've restricted right now to just 3.5 and 4.0. I'm adding more support later. You'd then be able to pick your tools. These all use the responses API. So you get all of these web search, file search, tools, etc. For web search, you could give your location just to give more personalized answers. But for file search, go to OpenAI, set up a file there, get the vector store, and you can drop that vector store ID, and that should be able to use that file. For the first agent, you speak English, just to make it a little more fun. After you give the declaration for the agent, you'd also give an output type if you want to declare structured outputs. But in this case, I just want it simple. I'm going to go ahead and hit update agent. So this agent is now set up with my instructions. I can then test this agent just by itself into seeing how it responds. So if I'm curious about my instructions and how my tools are working, etc., I could just make one single call, just like how Playground works, and see how those informations are returned. You could see the raw response data gives you a lot more. The raw response data gives you a lot more details, so you can kind of see what exactly is returned from OpenAI every time you make a call to this agent. Let folks kind of export this agent in itself with the Python code backend that you could just plug and play into your backend tool. Let's go ahead and add more agents. This workflow preview is not going to be useful now because we only have one agent. Once we have multiple agents, we can run the workflow preview. Agent preview is determined to test out each agent individually. Workflow preview is determined to test out your entire workflow. Agent 2 is you speak Spanish. And I'm good with this. I'm going to add another agent. And this one is you speak French. All right, and then I'm going to actually do handoffs from my agent 1 to agent 2. In this, the condition is essentially natural language condition. When user needs help with Spanish, go ahead and add it. And when user needs help with French, agent 1 will hand off to agent 3. So this way, we're just honestly adding some conditions where handoffs are happening. What I've added is also an agent 1. You will actually see that the instructions get updated to it too. So that's the most important thing, is that you have to add the instructions as well, so it knows when to hand it off to each agent. Now, I think our agents are done. Let's go ahead and test our workflow. It will know where to go and how to route the questions based on how you've done your handoffs. So we'll start with basic questions, saying hi. There you go. It's hitting the English agent. Let's go ask for. There you go. It's going into the Spanish agent. Same joke in French. Now, in the OpenAI side, it should have 3 traces: English, Spanish, and French. So let's take a look at that. So you should have the one we sent to Spanish, which is that one right there. Give me a joke. It said the joke, and then it is doing the Spanish. And then the same thing with English to French. It should have handed off to agent 3. So that is how our workflow is now running. Now you should be able to export your code, and that should have all of this workflow set up in a code that you can just plug and play into your backend. Let's see even that. So I'm having this as my thing. I'm going to grab this whole thing and run it in Visual Studio Code with a Python virtual environment. Let's plonk our entire code base here. And let's ask a question, right? This is the first one. Let's just keep it in English. Let's say, save this. Okay, so that's asking agent 1. It's asking that. Let's double check if the same. Let's double check and see if the trace is there. So that's the trace right there. So it's going to agent 1. Let's ask the same thing here with in Spanish, please. Okay, and that should now, when I run it, trigger. It's starting with agent 1 because that's the triage agent, and the final agent is going into Spanish. There you go. So this way you can actually build your agents and export the code and use it in your backend. Happy building.